Welcome to Bold Encounters. Today I have Grace Najean with me, and she is a fascinating self-leadership coach. She has been a master platinum level coach for Tony Robbins, and she has had amazing and fascinating and even tragic, unbelievably tragic events in her life. And we're going to talk about what she's learned in both her corporate life as a sales and marketing leader of doing some enormous deals in that space as well, and also a leader in corporate. And then she's out on her own, Grace Najean Consulting, that does self-leadership and some other very powerful topics we're going to talk about. How are you, Grace?
I'm so good. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really honored to serve your audience.
Oh, I'm so grateful you said that. I believe so much in that. You know, we had Grace and I. I'm just gonna be honest to the audience. Grace and I had some juggling to do. I'm outside of my town in a different studio, and it didn't even work. But we've pulled it off, and here we are. And it's gonna be an exciting. I want to start off. I really know that there is a split. There's not a lot of neutral people on Tony Robbins. There's most 99% of people that know how amazing he is, and then there's some that are a little cynical about. They think he's just a motivational speaker. That's because they've never read or listened to him or gone to an event or had him at their company. But I have, and wow. So I want you to start out right after that introduction. Just tell me a little bit about your experience with the Robbins organization.
Yes, of course. So he's an amazing human being, before being a speaker or, as most of people think is that he's motivational, speaker. But in fact, he changes seriously, lots of people's life. Why? Because, as I know, most of my clients, it's not because they don't know what to do. They already know, but they don't put it into action. I think what's the most important thing with the Tony is on spot for the 3 days, 4 days, or 7 days, the event, they make you change in action. So he brings every knowledge from different people, but people know it, but they don't do it. But Tony gives you that tips or that guidance for you to bring it at home, and then you can make the changes by yourself.
Yeah, I mean, in his Netflix special, he doesn't have a lot of time to show all that he makes people do, but I think it's fascinating how, yes, he's in a room, yes, he's leading a big seminar or whatever he ends up calling it, because he does different types of events. I viewed a lot of his events, and I watched his Netflix special and read some of his books, and one of the things that is really amazing, I think, about him, and likely you, is that he went to a big giant event like that, pulls people out of the crowd, and he doesn't just motivate people like everyone thinks that hasn't been exposed to his work. He actually makes you get out of the hall and do something, make the call, send the email, send the text, go visit him and come back. Whatever it takes, it's just really amazing. So you must have that instilled in you that, yes, we're going to motivate you and inspire you and things that are really important inside you, but then you're going to do some work outside. Is that what you were doing for him?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to talk about the energy, but I think it's all about energy, right? Because to make that breakthrough or changes in your life, you need that much energy. And I experienced, like in Chicago, 10,000 people's event, 10,000 people there. Tony comes in, a whole room changes the energy. His energy is such a huge. So that energy can support people's breakthrough, and then he holds the space. Yeah. So I think it's all about energy, end of the day. And then I'm going to talk about later a little bit how you can raise up your energy as well.
Yeah, I love that. You have also a really interesting background that is unexpected. Like I was attracted to talking to you because of all of this other leadership and self-leadership, which is really what your daylight hours should be about. And I think that's all very fascinating. It got me to your PR people. It got me to have you on the show. One of the things, though, that was shocking to me is to learn about your personal elements in your life. And at a young age, you were an expert pianist, and then you were a professional pianist. Did I get that right?
Yes, absolutely, for 15 years.
Okay, we have to talk about that for a second, because there's a major study, I think it's Bloomfield or something, I can't remember what it was. It's this thick, and they talk about all of the pianists and the engineers and all these different people, and they go through a meticulous, large-scale study on what it takes to be a great pianist. And it's crushing reading about what it takes to be a professional pianist. And I have 3 musicians in my family. One's a pianist, but to go to your level where you're in Paris and doing it, tell us a little bit about your childhood, the development, and the peak of that part of your life, would you?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I was born in Korea. And as you know, in most of Asian countries, we are very competitive. So since young age, right? So I started playing piano age of 4 and till 19 years old. And I played 3 to 6 hours every day, even more. You know, when I say every day, it's every day, 3 to 6 hours. When I had competitions, I had even more, like I think the longest was like 10 hours of practice. Yeah. So when I stopped piano, when I gave up, my personal issues, which you're going to talk about, you know, my parents' health issues. And then I was very in dark place, you know, it was like my heart was broken. So I didn't touch piano for 10 years, following 10 years. I didn't listen to classical music for 10 years because that was all my life, and then I had to change, right? But later on, I look back, that piano, 15 years of piano gave me every single thing, the foundation of being a high performer. What does it mean? Discipline and consistency and self-discipline, right? And even project management. I didn't learn project management from business school. I learned from piano, because when you play a piece of 45, 1 hour of piece, you know, you have to plan how you're going to practice this and make our, you know, masterpiece at the end. So somehow I think from young age, I learned that project management skill from piano.
That's fascinating. I'm very curious about what you just said at the end there, because you can, as I've learned by interviewing people in the music field for leadership, it's really fascinating to learn that the people that are trying to replicate exactly the music as it's always been done, especially as it's been written by the famous composer, whether it's Bach or whoever it is, they're trying to do it exactly right, and there's no variation. They're not the best. It's the ones that get it right and add the little innovations, just barely enough of a sprinkle to make it a masterpiece. Is that true? Do I remember that right?
Yes. So you need to have a mastery of techniques first, because you can't, express yourself. You can create your own music if you don't have the technical mastery. So that it's like even sports, same thing. You know, you can play tennis and go win a Grand Slam if you don't master your techniques, right? You need to hit the ball well, and you need to play well first, you know, having your own strategy later. So it's a similar thing. So we have to have that discipline comes there, you know, consistency, discipline to master the technique side. And then after that, once you have that, then now you can express through that music, even if someone else wrote it for you, then you can express your, you know, the emotions, your interpretation about the music.
That's beautiful. Now I got to go back. One more question about that piano history of yours. Well, maybe 2. So if I go back to your childhood, in that study that I read, it's been a number of years since I've read it, but it's big, and it talks very deeply about the different segments of the people that they study and everything. And the majority, one of the common elements across the segments of people that learned how to play piano, whether they were naturally gifted or they learned the whole thing, they had this practice of the parents making them practice for a given amount of time. And then there came a moment where they discovered that they fell in love with their capability to make music with those keys, and the parents didn't have to talk them into practicing anymore. Did that happen to you? And when, if so, when?
Yes, I think absolutely. In my case, as I mentioned, I started at the age of 4. Because even young age, I already started, my personality was I start something, I stop. I start something, I stop. I was always attracted by new things. Yeah. So my mom knew, if she, buy me a piano or start lessons, I'm going to stop again. So she taught me on paper keyboard version
Really?
for 1 month to test me out.
Wow.
So we did that for 1 month, and then after that, I still kept doing it. So she was like, "Okay, this one she really likes it." So then she found a piano teacher, and that's how I started. So I was already eager to play piano. I think I was
That's brilliant.
attracted, drawn by that sounds, the music, and usually that's the thing. When you're good at something, as you mentioned, you found out, oh, this works well. I'm doing so well. And then, this is I can say satisfaction. So that makes you even motivate even more to want to do more. And then after that, yes, of course, I won a few competitions. I was one of the, top for my generation. So then you got that like a sense of, okay, I can do this well. I'm so good. And then you want to do even more, right?
Yeah. Two things about that that's fascinating. The paper is so interesting because it's almost like a game. Like even playing simple chopsticks for someone like me, the mechanics of the piano keys are so difficult that putting a child on a piece of paper where it's just this simple tapping on a piece of paper where you color and you draw and you do all sorts of things that you think are fun, and her having you play on that and then not letting you do it right on the keys. She probably let you pound on herself and not learn on the keys yet, was kind of like, it set this desire in motion where you wanted to play on the keys, I would imagine.
Exactly. And I was blessed. I'm not in this generation. We have all, right? We have iPad. We have all these toys, you can have so easily. At that time in my generation, there was no access to that. So, I think my mom chose a really clever way to motivate me.
Very clever. Yeah. And then I've heard that once you get into the competitions, or I read actually, once you get into the competitions, that something happens inside you, whether you do well or not. You're so deep into being so good that when you're actually at a competitive level, if you lose, it spurs you on. If you win, it spurs you on. Tell us about that.
Yes. In fact, it's like I'm comparing with the tennis because my daughter was professional tennis player. So I know quite well about tennis as well, the word. But it's kind of addictive, because you're addictive of that adrenaline situation, and you want to do good, And on the top, if you're doing really well and you got some prizes or people talk about you, then it's even more, as a young person. I think that's the best achievement you could feel really in that age, yeah. So it's kind of a addiction in a sense.
It has to be.
Yeah, hard, tough way, but yeah.
It has to be. So I want to ask you a little later another question, but we're going to run into the professional. Let's just cover that before we go on to your parents, because you mentioned your parents, and that was a big part of this. So we don't have to come back. Let's just talk about the professional pianist. What does that even mean for you, and generally, and we all see a symphony or something classical, and we see a professional pianist, but there's so few in the world. What else is there, and what was your experience as a professional?
It's a commitment. It's all about commitment and responsibility, right? So when you take it, I think it's an identity shift as well. If you consider yourself as a professional, you need to deliver that music for people, and you are committed. And then you have that responsibility to make it happen as best as you can. So therefore, you put hours and hours till it becomes kind of perfections. There's no such a perfection, but we strive and then we try to deliver that, right? So for me, the part is really that identity of who I am. If you take yourself as a professional, then that's how it is. You need to deliver that. So it's a kind of a job, in a sense. When you get a job, you're paid, and then you got that title. You need to deliver, like most of entrepreneurs or corporate leaders. The same thing, yeah. So for me, the advantage was the being pianist was made me really mature, because my thinking system was really adapted to that, the mastery, right? So even young age, I think I never consider myself a young child. The downside of piano is because you're alone, you need to practice all the time yourself, right? So you and piano are only two, you and piano, and you are your own, friend. And I had a dog, but so I think you have that lots of time for yourself as well, and so that helps again. Some the mature, how can I say, thinking and thought process. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it also reminds me of a product. So, those of us that have been in corporate America are doing these things internally to persuade leaders, to persuade coworkers, to coordinate and collaborate. We used to do a lot of PowerPoints, and now we're making videos. We're doing a lot of these things internally. And there's a level of expertise and a level of quality that is okay there. And as YouTube started out and all the video was beginning online, there was kind of a cachet in doing things unprofessionally and poor production, poor lighting, things like that. But it's definitely upgraded. Even the ones that look like they are not staged, if you've done any video work, you can see a lot of careful video angling and lighting and decisions on all those videos. And so there's these products, whether it's physical or software or SaaS or whatever the product is, you can do something internally for coworkers and family and people like that, and it's at this level. There really is 90% of the work left when you make it commercial and you're going to offer it to the world as a dependable product, right? And that's kind of what you're saying with piano, is you had to go from way down to where everyone's amazed by you, that's family and internal to your network. But when you're going to take it to the world and say, I'm a professional, you now have to up your game almost twice, don't you?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's what I'm saying about a responsibility. Of course, that responsibility starts within you, for yourself first, because you don't want to disappoint yourself, right? I think the worst disappointment is yourself, right? So that comes from you yourself, your self expectation, who you are, and then after that, responsibility to others. How do you want to deliver to them?
Yeah. Well, you have something else in your life that's forgive us for being kind of voyeuristic and wanting to peer into it. It's highly unusual, but it's also very common as far as just a generic tragedy or bad event. There's so many of us that have been in corporate life, or we're in entrepreneurial life, or we're leading other people, and life doesn't seem to care about work in times of need. Tell us about the event and just tell us step by step what happened, and tell us the story, if you would, a little bit about your tragedy right in the middle of your life there. As you listen, I just want to let you know that there's more we're trying to help you with. Valuable benefits we've invested in for members of our Bold Encounters Club. We've also created a way for you to just see if these advantages help you. Go to boldencounters.tv and join and you'll get a free month's access to experience premium guidance, tools, and the care that we've invested in this work. At boldencounters.tv, you can also give club access to someone else you think may want more meaning or need more money in their life's work. Stay with us today, and at the end, you'll hear all about these great benefits.
Yeah, sure. So, my dad was a self-made man, entrepreneur, and then at that time, in Asia, in Korea, there was a lot of like how can I say lobbying, and then having some public relationship, a lots of drinking,
Mm.
to have deals, and then having the network and then all that. So he was a typical that Asian entrepreneur. Yeah. So most of the time, I didn't see him a lot often because he was working so hard, and then on evening time he was away, and so I think because of that, so that was just when I arrived in Paris. So I went to when I finished my high school, I went to Paris to continue conservatory. So I started practicing in a studio like 4 hours a day. I rented because in my studio, the little apartment in Paris, I couldn't have a piano. So I was
I bet.
practicing and preparing that for 6 months. And then in the fourth month, I got a call from my mom saying my dad had a brain stroke.
Mm.
So at the time in Korea, healthcare was not that great. There was no insurance, such as the insurance. So it's all about a cash, bringing cash and paying
Oh my
cash for
Lord.
the hospital. Yeah. So because of that, they couldn't support me anymore at that time, just the basic things. So I gave up piano for that. One of the reason was that. So I gave up. I had to stop a little while because I couldn't continue financially, right? Um, then somehow everybody said he would never walk again and talk again, but my mom took care of him so much. After 3 years, he could start to talk and he could start walk. So that was kind
Wow.
of a miracle, right? And then and then get back to business, so getting better. So I continue study my study in Europe, and I settled in Europe. Unfortunately, even with that, his how can I say health was digressing, and then my mom was exhausted. After 7 years of taking care of him, I think she passed away first.
Oh, oh, she
Yes.
passed away first?
Yes,
Oh
because
my
she took care of me
word.
so, I can imagine how much
What did
energy.
she, do you mind if I ask how that happened? What did she die from? Do you know?
It was the cancer, but she didn't talk
Mm.
to us because he was sick. I was away. I'm only child, so she
Mm.
kept it for herself till last, stage.
Oh
Um,
no.
so they discovered at the end it was in intestine. So she couldn't eat much, and she had a difficulty. She had a extreme pain, but because she didn't tell, we thought it was digestion problem and then all that. And I was so far away from Korea as well. But one day I got a call from my dad, and then I had a brand new job. It was a funny year. It was 1997, and I
Mm.
got married with a Frenchman, my husband, in August 97. And I got a new
Mm.
job as a sales manager starting from September. And I got a call from my dad in November. My mom was in emergency, so I had to ask to my boss, the having some leave, special leave, and then I went to back Korea, and then she was a just a breathing. She was her
Oh.
conscious was already gone. So anyway, so my mom died in November. And because my dad was so weak already, physically, mentally, so he passed away in December. He followed her 1 month later, just later.
Oh my gosh. What a
Hmm.
terrible, terrible time. And did it pull you back from Europe? But they're gone. So what did you do?
Yeah, so because I just got married, so it's a curse and a blessing at the same time, right? That funny year I got married, and a new job, and then my parents passed away. So I was blessed to have my husband who was always there. So,
Mm.
a whole 1 year from that moment was just going to work and come back home cry for a whole night evening and
Mm.
go back to work and then come back cry. And I think whole year was like that. I didn't want to see people. I didn't do any social interactions. And then for whole 1 year, it was quite tough. It was the one of the darkest moment in my life, I would say.
Mm.
Um, so after 1 year, as people say, life goes on, you don't, I think you never forget about that, but the
No.
emotion, just it fade a little bit. So it took me almost 3 years. So after 1 year, I think I had a psychology sessions for 10 sessions, to help me out. Before that, I didn't want to have a session. So after
Right.
1 year, I wasn't ready to talk about it. And almost 3 years later, just life start to get back,
Mm.
and then I focus on my life, my career, and then my, the life as a couple with my husband. So we built slow by slow from there.
Yeah, let me ask you a personal question about that. If, again, I haven't been through that, but I did lose my dad to cancer when I was young, and what I'm wondering is if you had something in the middle of that we experienced in our family that was not related to my dad. So your husband, any spouse that is a good spouse, is very supportive, and they listen and they listen and they listen and they respond. Hopefully, with less advice. I love giving advice no matter what, but I try to limit it. But he certainly was an amazing listener. I can hear it. You've mentioned it twice. Your tone says it's true. Yet that's such a dark moment that still there's this part that's just within you that has to be lonely. Was that true for you?
Yes, it's a lonely moment,
Yeah.
of course, because you are against it with your pain, yeah, and then
Yeah.
suffering. And unfortunately, I didn't do any personal development at that age.
Yeah. You can't
That
hand
was
it to
not,
someone else.
yeah, it's in our generation that time, there was not such a thing. Um, but I think, again, go back to that piano because that piano made me tough, personality as well, and I believed in myself. So I think love from my parents and belief in myself, I think there were two things, kept me, kept me in my life, move on. Now, again, look back, that was the toughest event in my life, but I think that was the biggest lesson in my life too at the same
Yeah.
time. Because most
Yeah.
of people, what they do is they take even little things big. Yeah. Why we suffer? Because we make so big, for little things. Some people unhappy with the, in the restaurant, if the coffee is too cold, they complain or whatever, but it's a the little thing. But when you have that such a huge big things in your life, and everything else is not important, it's a relative, right? And
Yeah.
you become stronger, and then you become more tolerant, and acceptance start to happen, I think. So such a young age, strong way, but I think that was one of gift in my life, to be a coach now, and to be serving other people. Why? Because I learned that myself.
Yeah, I want to talk about its effect on you. It's a big part of your story, as I read about you, what it led to. Before I do, I want to ask one last piano question. In the middle of that darkness, when you're alone, I had a son who had a brief time. It seems really long to him, but when you're young, time goes slow. It seems like just this is a year or two, and 2 years seems like so little now. But he had a time in his life where he was quite lonely. He was not treated perfectly by the neighbors, and it was legitimate, not the typical complaint. And he was quite lonely, and he had a couple of things that helped him out, but one of them was the piano. In fact, as I watched him, it felt like the piano was his friend, and it would speak to him because that music. He's so good that, and he can play anything. He can read music, but he also was trained to do it without music and do rock, and he's got a varied skill on the piano. He could just like sit down and play and compose, and I'd walk in and I just felt like I was walking in with two friends instead of my son. Did you ever sense anything like that the piano was your friend?
Yeah, but there is a certain theory behind it. I just came back from India. I went to India for 7 weeks. I came back
Oh, wow.
last week. So I went there for yoga training, and then I also did a certification for sound healing. Because nowadays we a lot talk about a vibration frequency. Yeah, we need to raise our vibration emotional, because everything is energy, everything has waves, yeah. So emotional vibration, or the natural frequencies, yeah. Music and piano has that vibration. Sound healing is all
Yeah.
about that, because it raises because your vibration is such low. But when you have that music or some sound healings, whatever, it will bring you, because lower follows higher. So when that's why you're attracted when this difficult moment about the music and sound, piano especially, because their frequencies are so high, and then naturally your frequencies goes up when you play them. So for me, it was the same thing. I remember now, that 15 years, even tough time, because that vibration goes up, your frequency goes up, and naturally you become higher frequency person.
Why do you think what is the theory or the reality that you're talking about? I think let's just do two other types of notes. So you have the high, which is very uplifting and it feels like goodness. But then you have low, which is mysterious, sometimes evil, but if it's not an evil song, it's mysterious and it's profound. And then you have the sharps and the flats that can seem like depressing or something. What is the meaning, or what's going on with the low notes and the sharps and the flats? What does those theories say about that?
Yeah, so every tone has a different vibrations, yeah. And I don't know, does that make sense? We have in our body, different centers have a different vibrations. So we call it this energy centers, but in India culture, it's chakras. Yeah, I don't know if you heard about the chakras. So we have that
Yeah.
7 centers of different vibrations of centers, so corresponding different tones of vibrations, yeah. So more lower energy you go, is the bottom energy center with more survival security, and how can I say that the life itself. So that's a lower vibration. More go you up, higher vibration, you go more spirituality and more your brain stage. Of thoughts and belief and creation, so that corresponds to different, vibrations. Of course, you can stay in the survival mode, and then the low vibration. Most of people stay, but your job is really bringing up your vibrations to the heart, to the throat, and through your head. Becoming more higher vibration and frequency for you to create a new future and create a new situations.
Fascinating, fascinating. You mentioned chakra. You had a heart chakra. You had a really powerful experience, and I couldn't tie it directly to any of the things we've talked about directly for sure. And I didn't ask you on the pre-call because I wanted you to explain it the first time to the audience. Tell us about if it has to do with your parents, if it has to do with music, or what happened, and take us through that step by step, what this powerful experience was that you had. Really shifted
Yes.
things.
Sure. So it sounds like a mystical, but in fact, now I understand it's not really mystical thing. But I was not, although I'm Catholic person, so I was born in a big family of Catholic. But because my background, I'm Korean, so I went to temples, I do the Buddhas, I love Buddhism. I really respect all the different religions in the world. Um, but though I didn't practice any like spiritual practice at all at the time, and I went to an event, and then there was like a meditation about the chakra, the centers, different centers meditation. I don't know. It maybe last 1 hour, 45 minutes. I have no idea what happened, but because there was strong music again, because I was so sensitive with the music already, my body was responding. So there was a music, color, and then chanting all together made me an alignment, a coherence of my heart and brain and whole my body energy center. So that created that what we call awakening. So what does it mean is your neural system, the wiring system is changed suddenly because of that shock, yeah, in that moment of coherence. So that's what I call the awakening moment. So I had that experience, the heart energy center awakening. So since then, my perception changed, and of course, on my heart, so I have a more empathy. I really truly understand other people's, till then I think I just hear what they were saying, but now I really can see and feel what they're saying. So it's a biological coherence happened in my body, and that in that moment.
And what was its effect on you in a thinking, practical, emotional, daily life way? You've talked about it a lot generally, but you wake up after that in your daily life, and what are your thoughts? How are they different? Your feelings, etc.
Yeah, because I was not in that spirituality, word at the time. I had no understanding of this, so I was a little bit like surprised, what was going on with myself. So to the point, I went to MRI to check if I have a brain tumor.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
to the point, it was so different. But there was nothing. So I said my husband, hey, if I have a brain tumor or cancer, that's not problem because I'm fighter. I can, go over it. But if it's not, I don't know what it is. Now I'm stuck. So since that time, I really searched the spirituality. When I say spirituality, it's religious things. Yeah, it's more of a consciousness, a human consciousness, how
Sure.
it this work, what this neuroscience mean. Yeah. Um, the biggest change was my emotions. I was so happy. You put me middle of war, I would be such happy still because I see some, tree moving, some birds singing. I'm just so happy. That emotional changes happened at that moment, and I think the most important thing is, sometimes people has that calling. The people, religious people, not religious people, they have a calling, yeah. That moment was my calling moment because that was personal development event, and I dedicated myself to be a coach to serve other people's life. So I think that commitment to who I wanted to become. I think that the universe served me, give me that opportunity to fast track. I think to become who I am right now and being more connected with my higher consciousness. I receive it that way now.
Yeah. Well, I don't talk a lot about spirituality on this show, and yet I'm a religious person. I have no qualms with saying I'm religious, and I'm a Christian, but I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I have had a similar experience, and I think it's a beautiful way of living to think about those moments and reflect on what they are and all that it's done for you. It creates such a gratitude that you've had that experience. And my personal set of beliefs are that there is God, and He's actually a parent of ours spiritually, and we have a counterpart. So we have a Heavenly Father and a Heavenly Mother, and those moments where we're like teenagers that left the house and moved out, and to find our way back and have a sweet moment with something greater than ourselves, that's more developed than ourselves, that's got more light and glory than ourselves. And just to have it for a few minutes can change your life. And it sounds like that's what happened to you. And I just think it's so beautiful. Because the reason I wanted to share mine is because there's caring involved. Like that thing that happens to you, it's just full of love, isn't it?
Absolutely, and you spot on. I think the understanding that are greater than yourself, I think that itself make you such a release,
Yeah.
because most of people, what we do now is a me, or my family, my son, my job, my me, right? It's such a scarcity word, scary word, because you need to defend yourself, right? So once you had realized that, oh, there's a greatest power out, beyond me. It's not about me. It's beyond me. It's such a relief. And then, you can focus us finally about others, about the world, about the team, about the, serving other people or living all together. Yeah. I think that's a big shift between that kind of spirituality or consciousness and non-consciousness from
Yeah, and it
me
doesn't
to
make.
others.
Go ahead. Sorry, I thought
No,
you
no,
were
no,
going.
sorry. Yeah. You go ahead.
I was just going to say. I thought you were done. I was going to just add that it doesn't mean that you're perfect at living according to that feeling. Like it's still hard to live and cooperate and push through difficulties and things like that. In fact, I had a couple of experiences where I owe other people forgiveness and I owe them my apology. Not many, couple, but I can think of two that are left, and it happened before one of my bigger experiences that, like you're describing, and kind of in the middle of them, I guess, and I still owe them some work, I do. I just I owe them some love, and but it pushes you to do that, and it's interesting. Like so many people think, oh, those are rules, and you have to do stuff, and no, when you just like you said it so perfectly, because I have this simple feeling, and I have a lot of kids. I have 5 kids, 5 boys. They're all adults, and I've told them over and over, look, life's really comes down to one choice. Like any given moment, are you doing something for me and getting mine and now, or are you worried about them, theirs, and later? You got to look at yourself from like having out of body experience and say, am I acting and doing something me, mine, now, like you said, or am I worried about them and theirs and their long term? And that basically comes down to that, don't you think?
Yes, but there's just a little irony of that too. In
Yeah,
fact,
there is.
we become selfish, and then a me, so egocentric, right, and self-centric people, because it's so funny, because you care of so much outer world. You care so much about judgment, fitting into the society, look like others, having that validation. So therefore, there's an empty you. So therefore, that's why you are focusing so much on you.
Yeah.
I am self-leadership coach because I think everything comes within you. I always say to my client, you can't give something you don't have. You don't have money, you can't give. You don't have a time, you can't give. Same thing for love. If you don't have love for yourself, you can't give love. That's not true love. It's just a charity or just a pity you're giving away. So everything starts within you. If you have such a self-love, self-confidence, self-awareness, it's from that confidence and from that awareness space, you can love others. But if you worried about you, compare with others, most of people do that, compare, right? With your colleagues, your neighbors, your cousins, and compare, and then they get more scared. But that's, I think, is our system's problem too, because such young age, we give them scoring, we compare them, you are better than others, do more and push more yourself, right? So only way they can measure themselves is scoring, comparing. There's no self-awareness, yeah? So I think, yes, we need to serve others, but it needs to come from within you, from yourself.
Yeah. For sure. And yet if you're willing to help others, you can find that you can find yourself. Really, you can't. It's funny, people think it's only outside of work. And the epiphany I've had in the last 3 or 4 years, even after going out on my own, I just had a series of epiphanies about what my history at work, in work life, in cubes and offices, in big companies, in small companies, in startups that I've done. They were so segmented, they were so isolated, and it's so ridiculous. Like, we are serving human beings that we call customers. We are cooperating with human beings that we call teammates. We are leading people we call employees. We are working for people we call the board. And they are people. They are just, they all have problems. They all have opportunities. They all have feelings. They all have desires. And we're just like surrounded by opportunities to develop a capability of helping people in certain ways and becoming better ourselves by helping them. It's so amazing. Look, I'm going to save time because you are in the practice of helping people. And I want you to talk a little bit about, before we move to our Premium Action Plan in a minute, where we get down to business for the week with one baby step that we take. I want you to tell, before we get there, about your work and what the methodology is and what you do for a couple of minutes. Give you the chance to do that.
Yeah, sure. As I mentioned, I work about the self-leadership, self-transformation, yeah? Because most of people live in 3D world. So I will talk about a little bit 3D, 45, the different dimensions of leadership space. So the 3D is really survival mode, yeah. As I mentioned, me, yeah. Every, as you mentioned too, everything feels now, yeah. Every email feels important. Every problem feels critical, right? Yeah, and then your money feels tight, yeah. And everything needs to be now and important. So, but that's a survival mode, right? So the problem is in stress, urgency takes over. You can't think, properly. So then we go to 4D. So once you have the self-awareness, you go to that 4D space, which is in awareness mode. So you start catching up that urgency. You disconnect from that urgency. Oh, okay, that's what's going on. And you pause more. And then you question whether everything is truly urgent. Really, is it true? Yeah, but still, it's in your head. So pressure is still there, just better managed. Yeah.
So is that about? Let me ask you before you leave 40. So are you saying that you're looking for the valence, the importance, the meaning, not just the urgency in 4D? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. So 4D is awareness. Most of people who does the personal development, they start to aware, right? And you can disconnect from your thoughts to true reality. You start to see, is it true? Is it real situation? So therefore, you can detach from that situation, and then you can think properly, clarity, have a more clarity, right?
Okay.
But it's knowledge. Because you apply it, it stays in knowledge, right? Better feeling, yeah. But in 5D, it's really true coherence, So in coherence, something shifts. So time feels calmer because you are coherent, you are aligned. So you respond instead of react. You move with intention, and money becomes strategic, not emotional thing, scarcity. So you don't rush, you don't freeze, you just decide. So that shift in getting into that 5D changes everything in your leadership. So my job is really bringing people from 3D to 4D. Most of people live in 3D, but some of my clients already juggling between 3D and 4D world. And then my job is bringing them to consciousness leadership, which is a 5D world. So they can be coherent, they can be aligned, their nervous system is, reset, so they can make a really proper, clear decisions in their lives.
I love that. Well, tell us where to find you before we let those that just want to stay with the inspiration of what we're talking about and may not join us for the action plan. Tell us where to find you.
Yeah, sure. So my website is the best way, I think. The www.gracenajean, Najean is Najean.com, gracenajean.com, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn. My name, Grace Najean again. I also run a retreat because I really believe people need that break and then, walk away from their environment and daily routines. So I offer 7-day retreat, whole transformation, physical, mental, and consciousness transformation for 7 days in November as well. So that's in Lombok in Indonesia near Bali.
Wow, that's amazing. That's terrific. That sounds very fun and exciting and enlightening, obviously. All right. Well, okay. So those of you that are going to depart, we wish you well for the week, and we urge you, join us. Go to boldencounters.tv, and you can join Premium, and you can join us on the other side of this. And we're going to go now to the Premium Action Plan, and we're going to get down to this week's goal. Gift Bold Encounters Premium today. Go to boldencounters.tv and start leading your life's work right now.